Welcome back, movie lovers. Today, we're diving into the heart-pounding 2021 action thriller, Wrath of Man, starring Hollywood heavyweight Jason Statham. The film follows the devastating loss of Statham's character's son in a robbery gone wrong. A former criminal mastermind turned into a vengeful psychopath and skilled assassin, he embarks on a mission to hunt down the perpetrators and exact his revenge. The film begins with two guards from a security company named Fortico. While on the job, a cement truck pulls in ahead of them. Out steps a gunman along with the rest of his team as they begin to attack the truck. They force the guards outside as they start pulling the money bags out of the truck, but gunshots are heard in the midst of the chaos. 3 months later, Terry, the manager, references the previous truck incident where 2 guards and a civilian were killed. He tells Patrick Hill that he will be replacing these men, but first he needs to pass some firearms tests. He is trained by Bullet throughout the day and barely meets the threshold to become a guard. After passing, they name Patrick H. Later on, he meets with some other guards, including Hollow Bob and Boy Sweat Dave. They begin their first drop-off with H, and as expected, the day was smooth and everything went to plan. The following day, H is out on a job with Dave. They are then forced by armed robbers speaking on the walkie-talkies for them to stop, as they have Bullet captive. They have H throw the money bags into the back of a pickup, but he purposely drops one off the truck. When one of the gunmen steps out, H throws a bag but then quickly shoots the man in the head. He proceeds to open fire on all the gunmen, shooting with 100% accuracy and killing each of them before chasing the leader. He goes through the nearby building and H manages to corner him and blow his brains out. H's actions on the job are met with scrutiny by Terry, telling him he will be on the desk for at least a month, but Fortico CEO Blake Halls commends him and thinks he should be promoted. He is then called in to review footage of the previous truck robbery to see if any of the gunmen in the video seemed familiar to him during the recent robbery. He has his eye on one specific gunman, but he tells the others that nothing appears familiar. The 2 agents are then shown to be working for an agent named King, as he thinks H will lead him and his guys to the crew responsible for the first robbery. The following day, the other guards applaud H for his heroics. He thanks them and gets to work. Everything goes as usual until 3 months go by. Bullet and H are en route to a delivery. A bike blocks their path and men surround them with guns. They attach a smoke device and force Bullet to get out of the truck. However, when H steps out and reveals his face, the gunmen appear to recognize him and immediately retreat. Back at headquarters, Terry is not understanding that armed men left the money just by looking at H's face. But Blake silences Terry and tells H he is going to have his own franchise at this point and to keep doing whatever he is doing. Bullet speaks with Boy Sweat Dave and thinks there is more to H, calling him a dark spirit. Later that night, H goes into the house of a guard named Dana, but when he finds a stack of money in her apartment, he interrogates her. He shoots a few bullets to scare her, and she reveals that she stole some of that money from a job a few months ago. H shows her 2 photos of her parents and tells her that if she is lying to him, there will be big repercussions. We go back 5 months earlier. H was with his son Dougie, who was visiting the States while on holiday. H gets a call from his former criminal employer, Mike, who was also the leader of the group that ran away from H. Mike asks H for help with one last job, but he need not be directly involved. H drives with Dougie near the docks where the robbery is set to take place, only telling Mike which way the truck is heading. As H is getting food for himself and Dougie, the cement truck guys show up to pull off the robbery. One of the gunmen orders Dougie out of the van. H sees what is happening and runs to his son, but a gunman with a scar near his eye shoots and kills Dougie before H can save him, and he shoots H repeatedly as well. H is in a coma for nearly 3 weeks before recovering and being told Dougie is dead. He meets with his ex-wife Jane, who blames H for the death of their son. He later meets with Mike and his cohorts, who all feel some responsibility for what happened to Dougie and agree to help H look for the men responsible. The group interrogates the criminal underground world, going from one team to the next until a man was interrogated until he gave up the name of some criminal brothers. H is led to a building where the brothers are involved in every possible horrific crime. With them having no information, H kills the brothers. After H starts working at Fortico, he takes note of the guards working there, which is why he asked his assistant Kirsty to get him some files. There are background checks on the guards, plus an autopsy report on Dougie's death. We meet the crew responsible for the first robbery, a team of ex-veterans from Afghanistan that are being treated as filth in America. They are led by a man named Jackson. In his employment are Carlos, Sam, Tom, Brad, and lastly Jan, a man who killed Dougie and shot H. They are seen planning the truck robbery during a party for Jackson. The crew goes off onto the robbery, noticing H and Dougie pull in. During the robbery, Sam orders Dougie out of the van and to get on the floor. Jan goes off the rails and shoots the 2 guards dead. When he notices Dougie having seen his face, he shoots him dead before shooting H. Following the aftermath of that heist, the crew is planning their next and final robbery, a score of over $150 million to be split between them and their man on the inside, which is revealed to be Bullet. Jackson and Tom go over the plan weeks in advance. They are both concerned over Jan, knowing his behavior of going off plan, but Jackson is confident that in the end he will follow orders. The crew proceeds to head over to Fortico, where Bullet confesses to H that he is the inside man that tells the crew which trucks to hit. Bullet turns off cameras and goes into an abandoned building. Jackson's crew is there wearing heavy bulletproof suits, and after tying up H's hands, they get inside the truck. The robbery commences, and having no problems at all, everyone puts their hands and face down on the ground, but one guard panics and hits the emergency button. It turns into a shit show. Bullets start flying, and they manage to blow up the door to the money stash. They begin executing each and every man in sight, and after butchering half the place, one of their men are injured as they turn off the emergency button. They open the gates for their last man to come in with their pickup truck and start loading the bags with cash. In the meantime, SWAT has been notified and is en route and needs 8 minutes to arrive. As the cops manage to block the entrance and SWAT rushing on their way, H manages to grab the gun of an assailant and shoots his leg with it. He then puts him in a John Jones chokehold until the man stops moving. He plays it smart and dresses up in the bulletproof gear. He walks up to one of the men loading the cash in the truck. He makes him remove his helmet, and when it's not his son's killer, he pulls the trigger. The rest of Jackson's men cannot move and are pinned down by Dana and another guard. With time wasting, Bullet reveals himself when he runs over to Dana to help them, but when he is handed a gun, he executes the both of them. In the corridor, Dave tries to stand up and is shot. When Terry is being forced to come out, H pops up and has a fierce one-on-one combat. He injures himself, but in the end manages to kill the assailant. Jackson's men pick up the man that was injured and make their way to the vehicle, and H begins firing his automatic at them. Dave manages to get back up and fires away at the injured man and finishes him off. As H hears a click behind him, Bullet shoots him and incapacitates him. Thinking he is dead, he reloads and calls Dave, saying the shooters have left. As Dave pops his head out, he gets a full clip into him. As they drive away, H gets a good look at Jan and recognizes him as Dougie's killer as they have a stare down at each other. They open the gate and ram the armored truck right through 2 police cars. They then begin getting chased by SWAT, police, and even helicopters. After getting some small damage from weapons, they make their way into a building, sealing the entrance behind them. With 5 minutes to escape, they plan on going through an underground access tunnel which is unknown to the public. Jackson was injured from H getting a good shot scraping his neck. When they have to abandon the truck, Jan finishes Jackson off. He and Bullet take the money through an elevator and make their way underground. They load the bags onto quad bikes and drive 3 miles and make their way to a car. After Bullet realizes Jan is a traitor, he attempts to kill him, only for Jan to act first and blow Bullet's brains out. He proceeds to make off with all the loot, and with there being hundreds of tunnels he can escape from, the police cannot cover all of them in time, and so he makes it out safely. Sometime later, Jan is sitting in an apartment with all the cash. He then receives a phone call coming from inside the bag. H then appears behind him, throwing him Dougie's autopsy report. Jan, confused, looks inside. He begins reading that Dougie was shot in his liver, lungs, spleen, and heart. Jan looks at Dougie's photo and remembers H on the floor staring at him. H then proceeds to shoot Jan in the liver. After squealing, he proceeds to the lungs. Jan then remembers H's son on the floor looking at him. H continues to the spleen, then finishes it off with the heart. He leaves the apartment and is met by Agent King, assuring him that the job is done and that he can presumably recover the stolen money. H then gets in a car with another man and drives away. I appreciate you sticking around till the end and would be grateful for your support on my channel. And as usual, see you on the next one.